Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to talk about our total solar eclipse, which we are closing in on as I speak. It's going to be happening on December 3rd, December 4th, depending on where you're located. And for most of us, we won't be able to see that. We won't actually see the sun eclipsed. The only places where you will be able to see the sun eclipse is going to be in Antarctica in terms of the total solar eclipse. So very few people will actually be witnessing that. Maybe some penguins will be watching in awe. But there's a few places in Southern Africa that we'll see partial eclipse. In terms of the time here in Hawaii, it's going to be from 7:29 p.m. on December 3rd, so on Friday, to 11:37 p.m. And Pacific time, that will be 9:29 on December 3rd into the wee hours of December 4th at 1:37 a.m. Pacific time. So this is the window of the solar eclipse that we're already in. We've had our lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, and we're moving into this place where we have the waning moon, right? Where the moon goes dark, and it's always eclipsed every month by the sun in a new moon. And we have the planet Mercury joining. Sun, Moon, and Mercury are all going to be in a star called Jayista, which is the eldest. It is the foremost. Of the 27 nakshatras were said to be the wives of the moon, the sister wives of the moon. She's the oldest. She's the one who has the most power and authority. She's also the one who's the most jealous of the other sisters, especially the one across the way in Taurus named Rohini, who is the loveliest, the rosiest, the pink maiden. Jayista is ruled by Indra, who's the foremost of the gods. He's the king of the gods. And he's the one who kind of gets himself in trouble because he has this aura that can sometimes borderline on cockiness. He can sometimes feel a little too confident about himself to the point where he's, poo-pooed his guru, Jupiter, at a juncture or two, and caused quite a lot of chaos in the world of the gods when Jupiter just disappeared and said, okay, fine, if you don't need me, you don't need me, I'm gone. He's created a lot of mishaps as a result of his confidence, and then he has to really show up in courage. So he's both courage and confidence, and the folly that can occur if we don't temper that. If we continuously put ourselves in situations where we feel so certain that we can handle it, and then suddenly we can't handle it, or it's a lot bigger than we thought, and we have to muster up even more courage than we ever thought possible. So this is a lot of what we have to reckon with in Jayista, is that warrior part of us who really is up to task. But on the other hand, do we need to make the tasks so big? Could we possibly allow ourselves to relax a little bit and not create such huge battles that we don't have to step into? We could actually think maybe life could be easier than this. And that's one of the lessons in general in Scorpio, because Scorpio is where we have a lot of fear. Ultimately, it's the natural eighth house. It's where we're facing our fears. It's where we're in this sort of turbulent emotional world that is both angry and fiery as a result of the Mars rulership, and watery and emotional as the result of the fact that it's a water sign. And when we bring anger and emotions together, it gets very volatile. And a lot of the things that happen in the realm of Scorpio are projection, or this illusion or delusion that something is so big and so scary and so horrible. And as a result, we act such, we show up in this big way, really trying to control what is completely out of our control. And that can lead to a lot of drama and a lot of trauma in our lives that we don't necessarily need to have. That's really the biggest lesson of Scorpio, is there's compassion that can come of all of that. There's lessons that can be learned, but we don't need to learn every lesson the hard way. We can learn things in small ways, and we can be gently guided. We don't need to have this huge dramatic thing in order for it to, in order for our needs to be heard, or our pain to be seen, or for someone to give us compassion. We don't need to create so much in order to just feel that love, which is really what we're trying to feel. Scorpio comes after Libra, where we have this give and take, and relationships are very important. And in Scorpio, we have this fear, well, we could lose this relationship. This person could leave us. This person could die. We could die. All these kinds of things can happen. And of course they can, they very much can happen. But spending our time in that world of being afraid of it isn't necessarily beneficial, and it doesn't mitigate the thing from happening. It doesn't help us prevent anything from happening. It actually just creates more chaos and more drama in our head. And sometimes we actually do the opposite. Instead of saving ourselves from a disaster, we create a disaster by putting all those thoughts and words into the universe and creating the ripple effect from them. So it's a really important lesson to learn right now. And the node that's doing the eclipsing, the south node, is really all about past. It's the past life karma. It's our early childhood that we can look at in order to see what our past life karma brought us into in this life. There's a lot of things about Ketu that make it challenging for us to actually look at wherever it is. So this area of our life where Ketu has been since September 28th of 2020 has been this place where we're sort of avoiding. The north node, where we just had our eclipse 2 weeks ago in Taurus, is focusing the energy there. I want comfort. I want ease. I want peace. I want family values. I want food. I want land. I want a garden. I want things to be harmonious and beautiful and pleasurable and feel good. But they're not feeling good because we haven't dealt with the drama and trauma of Scorpio. It's hard to create this beautiful life of ease and comfort if you have all the shadow work that's sort of lingering in the recesses of your being. It's very challenging in order to, and whatever house these are is going to be a big part of it. It's not just the sign of Taurus and the sign of Scorpio. It's a house. It's an area of your life that it's ruling. And if you haven't yet, and you're not already on my email list, you can sign up for that and check off Vedic astrology as what you want to receive. And you can get a report that shows you exactly what this axis is highlighting for you, whether it's your career and your home life, whether it's your personality and your being and your body and who you are versus, other people and relationships. It really will make a big difference in how this is affecting you and what way it's affecting you and what the work is that you need to do, and I don't even want to call it work, but what the deep uncovering that needs to occur for you in the sign of Scorpio. What area of your life is it reflecting? Because there's shadows that we all hold. And this is a transit. So this isn't our natal chart that's saying this is your lifelong lesson you need to learn. This is the 1.5-year transit where we are being called upon to clear karma in this place, in this specific place. And it's much easier to look at the north node and look where that's taking us. It's much harder to look at the south node. But we have a huge blessing here in that Rahu and Ketu really enjoy being in this axis. This is its exalted axis. Rahu's grounded in Taurus. Ketu can go deep in Scorpio. Scorpio is not afraid of the depths, right? The water element in general allows Ketu to drill down deep without so much resistance. And Scorpio in particular really loves the shadow realm, right? That's what Scorpio lives for, is what's lurking in the shadows. And Ketu can really find that for us, especially with the help of the sun. So this solar eclipse has been a long time coming, really at the end of this axis's domain in this place. As soon as the new year begins, we're going to start to move into the next axis where Rahu's in Aries and Ketu's in Libra. So this is our final hurrah. This is the big bang that's giving us an opportunity to really learn whatever needs to be learned here. And it's very possible. It's very potent with possibility. And that's something that we need to remember, is that things that feel scary or that are intense aren't always that scary or intense. In fact, it can be very thrilling and fun to go into the places we're afraid of. That's why people like horror movies or going to amusement parks or, different types of psychoactive drugs and plant medicines and things, because it's an opportunity to explore something where we don't have control and when we are in the unknown. And it's a domain that is thrilling, just in that it's unknown, as much as it's scary. And some of us are more open to that than others. Some people, really have a hard time with things that are unsettling or uncertain. And again, if you can see what house it is for your chart, you can see what that energy brings up for you. For a Gemini rising, Scorpio is your 6th house. It's a lot of work to do this kind of shadow stuff. It's not the place you want to be. Geminis have to deal with a lot in the realm of the emotional turbulence of Scorpio. It doesn't feel effortless and fun. It's not where they're diving in to go every day of the week unless they have a lot of planets there. So for everybody, it's a different, it's a different thing. For a Scorpio rising, this is you. This is where you live. You live in this realm. For a Taurus rising, it also can be difficult because it's the opposite energy. It's the seventh house. So it's not necessarily a place you're super familiar. Likewise for Sagittarius, Scorpio is your 12th house. It's the realm that you're not paying attention to. It's the thing that already happened before you were born. So, why would I be doing that? So it's going to bring up different things for each of us, and we'll each have a different level of comfort with what's going on. We also have to account for the fact that the sun, the moon, and Mercury rule different things for us. If any of those are your ruling planet, then your identity is also being affected here, especially if it's the sun. Your identity is being eclipsed in the 4th house of home, the heart. So all of these placements make a really big difference in how you're experiencing this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see the chart of what we're looking at. We can see this pile up of planets here for the eclipse, and we have December 3rd. This 9:43 time is when the actual degrees of the moon and the sun are the same, right? We have the sun and the moon exact degrees at this point. But like I said, the max point of the eclipse is 9:33 p.m. So 10 minutes earlier is the high point of the actual eclipse itself. And of course, we won't be seeing it because it's a solar eclipse. And that's 11:33 in Pacific Standard Time. We won't be seeing it, but we can meditate through it. We're not really supposed to go out and see a solar eclipse anyway. You're not supposed to stand out there and gaze at it. You're best indoors and allowing yourself to find a meditative space, whether that's, chanting or praying or singing or just sitting still in silence. Whatever it looks like for you, the main priority in an eclipse is not to be super engaged. You're not looking to be really social or active, because that's when you miss the messages that are available. If you're spending your time, doing all these different things, and at this time at night, it's not really going to be a time for errands necessarily, so you don't have to worry about possibly going to errands, but it could be a time for somebody being at a party or a gathering or something like that. And driving for sure can be very sketchy at eclipse times. It's a time when we want to be open to receive messages, not when we want to be distracted with mundane things. So if we do engage in the mundane world and we do try to put ourselves in a party, whatever, then weird things happen and everything feels scary. And then our Scorpio fears come true. Right? That's when we see the car accident, or that almost happens, or this thing crazy, we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're creating that drama for ourselves. And that's really what Scorpio can be like. That's one of the things that can come up for us. If you think of Scorpio as this tiny bug that is really much more likely to die as a result of our presence than we are to have anything serious happen as a result of their presence. Worst case scenario, you get stung, it hurts. And you put something on it and you're okay. Whereas for them, worst case scenarios, they get smushed and the life is over. So we have this, huge blown up thing. Often people do really have huge fears of bugs. I certainly did as a child. I did for years and years and years, actually, not just as a child. It really took until I was 30 and in India and having to face these massive spiders as big as my hand that jumped before I really, kind of had to get past it. But we tend to blow up the fear around bugs and around insects. And in truth, they're much smaller than us. And we really we pose a much bigger threat to them than they can ever pose to us. So that's something I always remind myself of in Scorpio times. It seems bigger than it is. It's like this big dragon monster thing we've lit up on the wall. But when we turn the lights on, it's just tiny. And that's really what the sun is. The sun is the light. The sun is bringing in that blazing light and shining it in all the corners and be like, see, it's really not that bad. Or look, it was really horrible. That thing that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or to your grandparents or in your lineage. And we should look at that and we should honor it. And we should say, this did happen, and give it some credence, give it a seat at the table, but don't don't entertain it forever. Allow it to integrate, reintegrate back into our being. But if we repress things and we pretend as if they never happened at all, that's when they really morph into those gigantic, dragon-like huge monsters that we can't control and that we feel a lot of fear around. And then we find ourselves fighting those things. So while these 3 planets are all in Jaista, where we will have that fighting spirit, Ketu, the node, is eclipsing from Anuradha, the devotional part of Scorpio, the part where we allow ourselves to relinquish in our control, to know that we have no say over what the results are of any of our actions, and that we can only just be in love. If we can come from that perspective of Radha, who is the devoted one, who is the lover of the beloved, and we can feel how that one-pointed focus, just be in love, can solve everything, because we don't know what will happen for whatever we do. But if we act from love, the result can only continue to bring that out. And there is a beautiful story that I've told before many times, usually when this nakshatra comes up, when Anuradha comes up, about this physician, these hundreds of physicians really that come to Krishna in the palace in Dwarka, and they can't find what's wrong with him. Something's wrong with him. He's very sick. He's ill. He can't be healed. And they call upon all the different people to come forward. And finally, one doctor says, this is what's wrong. What he needs is he needs someone to bend down and take a dollop of dirt off the ground and place it on his forehead. Well, no one will do this. Everyone backs away, because the amount of karma that you get from taking dirt off the ground and putting it on Krishna's head is going to keep them on the wheel of time forever. They'll have so many samskaras from this one act. They're not willing to do it. Well, finally, Radha gets word back in Vrindavan that Krishna's not well, and she rushes to the palace and she comes in. She says, "What's wrong? Oh my goodness." And he's all ill on the bed. He can barely speak. And the doctor says, "This is what must be done to heal him." And she does not even think once. There's no question in her head. If there's something that can heal him and she has any power to do it, she's going to do it. There's no will this affect my future karma, and will I be back on the wheel of time? And any of that is not even a thought to her. And in so doing that act, she then becomes realized. That's when she becomes his other half and becomes a goddess, and not a regular gopi who he did have special and fond feelings for. But in this moment, she becomes herself realized. And that's the thing. No one else knew what would have happened from that. Guaranteed, if those people had thought they would have become realized for doing it, they would have done it. But that's not why we do our spiritual practice. We don't do our spiritual practice to get realized. Many people do. Many people do. Many teachers I've even had have that in their mind as a goal that they're trying to get realized. And that's the reason they won't get there. That's the obstacle. The obstacle is the wanting to control the circumstances and having this goal of trying to get somewhere when we can just be in love. And it's simple. It's just there. We're already there. You're already in that love. You're in that rapture. The bhaktas are the ones who know this. And that is why Radha is the one to follow, because she is the emanation of how to be a lover. The great Sufi poets have written about this, just the ecstasy of being in love with God. And one of my favorite deities that I work with in this particular realm that has really come up for me in this eclipse has been one of the Das Mahavidyas, one of the 10 wisdom goddesses, Lalita Tripura Sundari. And she's the beauty of all 3 worlds. And she's this warrior-esque goddess, similar to Durga in a sense, but she's also quite feminine and sweet in how she fights her battle. And yet she's raised up on a lotus flower held up by all the different emanations of the masculine. She comes up out of Sadashiva, out of Kameshwara, the form of Shiva that is desire, out of his belly button on a lotus leaf. But underneath him is Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, Rudra, the destroyer, and Shiva, who is the culmination of all 3 of those male deities. she's called upon by Indra, by this god of gods, king of gods, who has been overtaken. And the demon that she's here to fight is called Banda. And he came from Shiva's own repression of his desire. By repressing his desire, which many yogis and ascetics do, they have a concept of having to refrain from everything. It's this asceticism. It's the need is to keep yourself from your desire. And that's a path, and it's a path that leads somewhere. But she teaches us how there's another way. And she, as a result of his repression of his desire, what happens is that he's sitting, meditating, Shiva's meditating, and the gods have called upon Shakti to come into form, to bring him back, because he's been gone for so long since she died the first time when she was Sati. And so she comes as Parvati, the daughter of Himavat, the Himalayan mountains, and she spends all of her life devoted to him. And at one point when she comes of age, she's sitting there in the meadow looking up at him, and Kama, the god of desire, comes and shoots him with an arrow in his heart so that he might see her. But he recognizes that feeling of desire, and instead of opening his two eyes to see Parvati, he instead opens his third eye and incinerates Kama, and he turns into a pile of ashes. And the pile of ashes, one of his ganas, one of his little demon friends, one of Shiva's demon friends, comes and sort of plays with the pile of ashes and brings it into form, and it becomes this demon Banda. And Shiva says, Banda, Banda, good, good. This is a part of him in a way, right? It's the part of him that's been repressing everything, and that's where he is in his heart space at that time. Well, Banda asks for a boon, and his boon is that he's going to get half of any opponent's energy, and he keeps getting it. So he becomes very powerful, as the demons do. He takes over all three worlds. He gets a huge palace erected to him. He gets a demon army. He gets a harem of women. And then he takes over Indra. He takes over Indra's own rule. And Indra is upset. He goes to the Bhagirati River and he prays to the goddess to come help. And she rises up out of fire. So she is fire, right? Desire, passion, this Marsian energy. She's rising up out of that with these 4 male deities at the bottom, and she's coming up out of the belly button of Maheshwari. And she is glowing, rosy, large bosom, small waist, sexual, full of desire. And she carries a noose. And the noose actually helps bring the particles towards one another, helps to bring our energy in that tantric way where we attach ourselves as opposed to detaching ourselves. She has a goad to goad us along on our path. And she has a bow and arrow, 5 arrows made of red roses. So as opposed to being, sharp arrows to kill with blood, she kills with love. And she sets out into the battle. And right away, Banda starts to set up all these different ways, these tactics to block her. He has, he sends out a demon who has a power with his eyes. He can paralyze with fear. And she throws a veil over the demon's eyes and pierces him with one of her rose arrows. He gets his sorcerer to make a yantra that's going to bring laziness and tired energy and all this delusion into the Shakti camp of all of her little warrioresses. And it works. The yantra comes in, everyone gets very tired. She doesn't know what to do. So Lalita laughs peals of laughter, and her peals of laughter coalesce into Ganesh. And Ganesh goes in and stomps on the yantra and breaks it out. And she says, thank you. You will be the first that we honor in all of our ceremonies. Finally, he brings out his own sons to come in the army, and she brings out her daughter Bala, and there's this army of the children fighting each other, and Bala is able to instantly, and Bala means an infant or child, she's able to instantly defeat his sons. And so then it's just Banda and Lalita, and he throws everything at her, delusion, he throws hatred and despair and all these things. And she just throws back compassion and love. He throws fear. She throws, overcoming the fear. And it's this back and forth of all of these different ideas or concepts of what we have in our head, all these emotions that we live through. And she keeps kind of one-upping him. But he has that boon, right, where he can take half of the energy of his opponent. But the problem is her energy is infinite. it's non-ending. And so he keeps just getting half of it, but she still has infinite. She still has infinity. You can't take anything from it. And so eventually she is able to overcome him with the love, and the demon dies as they do. And as always, Shakti, the feminine, is always bringing it in, always taking it in. It's always part of her. We have, we're not here to be perfect. We're not here to create some illusion of perfection. We're here to take in all of ourselves and everything. And so I love Lalita for that. And it also brings up for me this prayer to Devi, with where she, we're calling out to each of her names. She is the shadow. She is, it's Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu. She is Chaya, the shadow. She is the power. She is our Shakti. She is our loveliness. She is Kanti. She is our generosity. She is Lakshmi. She's our faith, Shraddha, but she's also our vritti, our mind stuff that we cannot release. She's also our error, our Branti. So she's our hunger, our Kshuddha. So each of the different parts of us, whether we own them or not, whether we like them or not about ourselves, the goddess encompasses into herself. And all of those are a part of her. And so that's one of the things that's so beautiful about the practice of working with the goddess, which is really the practice of Tantra, to accept that which is the material world, that which exists. And in this eclipse, we have an opportunity to really embrace what is, and to embrace all those parts of ourselves that we don't like, and all those stories that might just be stories. Of course, we those of us who live in sort of a spiritual realm, we have a lot of armor or capacity to use spiritual concepts and philosophies in order to override our pain. And it's important that we don't stay stuck in it, right? It's important that we don't stay stuck in this sort of victim mentality. But it's equally as important that we don't repress or pretend things don't exist, or bypass anything that has happened to not just ourselves, but our, those around us, our community, our family, and our ancestors, and our, our lineage. And so looking into anything our families have had to deal with, and feeling compassion for our parents and our grandparents and everything they've had to traverse to get us here. We have a tendency in the Western world, especially in America, to sort of be angry at our parents for not doing it more right. And ultimately, that's, our parents were human too, just like we are. And if you're a parent now, you know that it's very hard to do everything right. It's very easy when you don't have kids to judge all that other parents are doing. Everybody's a great parent until they actually have their own children. But when you do have your own children, you realize you have to constantly come face to face with the shadows of yourself, and the fact that you may do things that your parents did that you thought you would never do yourself. So it's important to have compassion. It's important to bring it into the light, and to, yes, use that warrior spirit, but instead of being, having the battle be so difficult, we can use this Lalita energy of love and overcome it with love, and allow ourselves to love even our ugliest parts. And that's, that's a big lesson we have here. So the eclipse is going to finish on the 4th for many of you. For us here in Hawaii, it's going to be the 3rd. And then after the eclipse, we're going to have Mars move into his own sign. And that is going to kind of ensure that whatever it is we haven't been looking at in this Scorpio house, whatever we haven't really wanted to look at, is going to, kind of get that final battle. And if we didn't do it already, it will be done. Mars and Ketu coming together, and I wanted to find the hours of that is, it's like 2 o'clock. I knew that was going to happen. As soon as that, for some reason, that Parashara's light just has a tendency to black out. So I'm not going to show it because that'll just be too much energy to do that. But it's around 2:45, I think, in the afternoon Hawaii time, which is 4:45 in the afternoon in the Pacific Standard Time. That we are, okay, this did come up again, so I can try to to find it quickly, that we're going to have the planet Mars go into his own sign. And let me screen share again. Sorry about that. It's something that happens often whenever I use that time change tool. So I kind of knew it was going to happen before it happened, but we'll just imagine Mars is moving in here, and he's going to be exact with Ketu on the 14th and the 15th of December. So we will see that post eclipse, we're still going to have this sort of energy of needing to be warriors. Mars and Ketu, when they get together, can be very militant and very cutting. It's an alignment of surgery, and also things like police or military. And it can go down deep into this realm of Scorpio and really do whatever wasn't done. Mars is in his own sign in Scorpio. So there's going to be a lot of intelligence running and a lot of power, but also a lot of explosive energy. Scorpio is, again, a water sign. Ketu is fiery. Mars is fiery. We're looking at anger coming up underneath emotions. And of course, we could see this maybe in a social way and also in a geographical or geological way. You know, I think last year when we had this eclipse in this placement, of course, it was the beginning of the axis, much different than having already traversed the axis for so long. I said something like that, and fire did come up. I think my image that I used even for my report was water table with fire underneath it. And that did actually happen here on the Big Island. We had the lava break through the water table in the crater. So there is that potential for fire to come up through water. But in our own world, that's your anger coming up through your emotions, your deep-seated past life anger, because that's what K2 is bringing up, old stuff. So that's going to be something we reckon with. And then on the 19th of December, we have Venus beginning retrograde. So Venus is still here in Sagittarius. It will be in Capricorn. Again, I'm feeling not to mess with the time tool change at the moment, but Venus will then be moving retrograde. And this is going to have us going back over old relationship patterns, right? When Venus is in retrograde or parent retrograde motion, we run back over old themes in our relationships, and we are asked to maybe see the ways we compromise or don't compromise, maybe asked to see what things come up from those previous relationships, which might have some relationship to some of the trauma, drama, and past life stuff that we're dealing with through Scorpio. So this is something to really sit with, and whatever Venus rules in your chart, again, that will be, you know, for Taurus and Libra, it's their ruling planet. So it's going to be a reflection of yourself, going back through stuff that has to do with your own self. For Scorpio and Aries people, it's going to be their seventh lord. So it will really have to do with relationships. So it's important to know where all these different things are in your chart. And again, if you haven't already signed up for my email list, I do offer these kind of free reports all the time. Right now, at this exact moment, we still have Mars. It's Mars combust for all 12 signs, but Mars is actually now out of combustion. He's combust when he's in 17 degrees with the sun. You can see he's 18 degrees here, the sun. And when Mars moves in, the sun will keep moving. And so they're out of combustion now, but of course, Mars has a new kind of combustion joining Ketu. But, you know, Mercury is combust. We might not feel heard. The moon is shadowed by the sun in the new moon. And it's also a debilitated new moon. I should mention that while we had that full moon in Taurus, that was an exalted moon, an exalted full moon with Rahu, where we want to look. This is a debilitated moon and a dark moon, where we already feel a little more depressive when the moon is new, because it's less engaged in the world. And then to have it be debilitated in the sign of Scorpio, even though it's far past the point of debilitation, the actual degrees, it's still in the sign of debilitation, where things are really emotionally messy, and the moon likes the calm stability of Taurus. And then, you know, to have Mercury also be so close to the sun, where we might not feel super heard, and there can be a lot of controlling energy going on here that we need to be mindful of, and a lot of anger. And then Mars coming in, no longer combust with the sun in his own sign, but about to become conjunct this K2 in just a few weeks. So, or just a couple weeks. So we have a lot. And then Venus going retrograde. So we need to be careful and mindful in our relationships, especially because, you know, those are the people closest to us that we often lash out at. And we're, you know, our next cycle in the eclipse is actually going to be Rahu in Aries and Ketu in Libra. So we're going to be learning that lesson collectively, where we are sort of fixating on our selfish nature and what we want to do, and really, you know, maybe pulling away a little bit from our compromise and harmony and our capacity to really give and take. And so it's a theme that's leading us into the next year. And the more work we do on the front end, the easier we make it for ourselves. It's just like anything. If you clean as you go, then you're more likely to have your, your next step is going to be easier. If you let everything build up and pile up and be really messy, then you have to do a huge overhaul and a huge cleaning. And that's never that much fun, right? Then it becomes work. It becomes work, and it becomes a challenge, becomes a battle, like the battles that Indra has to fight. He has to get all the water out of the demon Vritra and go into the cave and find him. And it's more work than is necessary. We don't need to create this kind of work for ourselves, actually. So, we can be more blissful about it all. And I'm going to save, I've talked a lot about Jupiter and Saturn in recent forecasts. I'm going to save my breath here and allow us to really ruminate on what's potent for this eclipse. But if you do sign up for my email list, then you do get that Jupiter in Aquarius also report. So that will help you with that, navigating that. And it's also the last few days to sign up for my special I've been running on 30-minute transit reports, and they carry you into spring, summer. It depends on your chart exactly for how far they carry you in, but I talk about the transits of the nodes shifting into Aries and Libra in these readings, and I talk about Jupiter's transit into Pisces after Aquarius. So it's a potent for right now, but it's not just for this eclipse and navigating this eclipse. It kind of moves into the new year and into the spring, even summer for some of you, depending on your dasha cycles. So it's been really helpful for many people. The feedback I've received has just been not only outpouring of people really wanting these readings and needing them right now in this intense time, but also really positive feedback from the people who've received them and how much help it's been for them in navigating this and seeing where they're going. So they're 30-minute special readings for $50. Normally I charge $65 for 30-minute readings. They're audio recordings, so they're not a live Zoom call with me. I do them on my own time and I send them to you, which is why I'm able to keep, do them at this reduced price. And I normally only do these for previous clients. I don't normally do 30-minute readings for new people, but I'm opening this up to everybody. So if you did want to take advantage of that offer, this is the last few days on December 4th at midnight, Hawaii time, which is 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's when the booking will end. So if you wanted to reach out about that, please don't hesitate any longer. And I wish you all many blessings on this eclipse portal and all the love and all the power that comes with really living in a place of love. And namaste.